If you've played our previous stuff, you know that mountain is not just a backdrop. You can walk all the way to the top of that mountain.
You see that mountain? You can climb it. It's a meme that we've all heard for more than a decade now, but one mod author in particular decided to take that joke seriously. Today, we're taking a look at Ascend, Hidden Peaks of Skyrim by J. Serpa, adding a total of 10 hidden mountain peaks across Skyrim and Solstheim, each with their own unique climb and meditation points, as well as a handful of new rewards. Ascend doesn't aim to add new locations to your game, rather it aims to make use of existing locations and peaks, placing new traversable paths along the way so that you can strive to reach the top. Through a combination of exploration, jumping, and actual climbing, you can make your way to the highest points across the land. This mod does rely on EVG animated traversal from Everglade, which in turn requires SKSC, address library, and several other utilities. Animated traversal used to require Nemesis in order to run, but it no longer does, although it's still perfectly compatible with Nemesis if you have it. Skyrim plays home to 5 peaks, plus one additional peak through an extra mod. These mainland locations rely much more on animated traversal, making it a very strict requirement. Solstheim plays home to another 4 peaks, which aren't touched up as much, and won't require EVG traversal at all. When installing animated traversal, I opted for the bigger, brighter markers to indicate climbable surfaces, just to make sure that the triggers stood out a bit more against the wind and snow. Ascend is also compatible with Skyclimb, which aims to automatically add new climbable points wherever the game deems possible. It is still recommended that you try to follow the original path laid out by Jay himself, but you shouldn't run into any issues with Skyclimb installed. The first of the peaks that I visited was Mount Anthor near the Shrine of Azura, with the traversal markers being present almost immediately. Each of these new locations is marked by a small rocky cairn to let you know that you're in the right place. Shortly after beginning my climb, the mountain began to shake and rocks tumbled down from above, narrowly missing me. Making your way up isn't a matter of just hitting climb again and again. You'll need to look around, and in some situations, make sure that you're finding the right path. Mount Anthor had at least one tricky spot, a climb marker on a larger rock that you failed to climb, which even shows you sliding down as you try to scale it, which I thought was a really nice touch. After squeezing through the narrow crevices and scaling the mountaintop, I finally reached the peak, gazing down upon the Shrine of Azura nearby. And at the tippy top, I was greeted with a meditation point, allowing for some quiet reflection, a small haiku, and a new musical track playing in the background. In addition to all of this, I also got a new active effect to increase frost resistance while in colder regions, as well as a map marker for my newly discovered location. But you might be thinking to yourself, how do I get down? And J. Serpa has accounted for that. On each mountaintop, you'll be able to find a hidden nest with golden feathers. Consuming a feather grants a brief period of immunity to fall damage, meaning that you can jump down the mountain without worry. Or you could just carefully make your way back down, and of course you could always just fast travel away. There's a lot of inspiration taken from Ghost of Tsushima, and I love it, because the shrine puzzles in particular were some of my favorite parts of exploration in the game. The next location, Brittleshin Hills, can be found just after exiting Bleak Falls Barrow, and like Mount Anthor, will feature a few dead ends of sorts, rocks that are too large or steep for you to climb. I found Brittleshin to be a bit more straightforward of a climb than Mount Anthor, or maybe it was just because I was getting the hang of the mod a bit more. Out of fear of falling to my doom, I didn't manage to find the golden feathers at every single location, but I did find them for several of these peaks. Just outside the exit to Forelhost, along the battlements, you'll find the cairn marking the start of this climb, with a rickety bridge along the way and a frozen skeleton covered beneath a shroud of snow. Melting away the snow with a fire spell or torch will reveal the journal of this fallen adventurer, detailing their last moments as they succumbed to the elements, along with the Dagger of Self-Doubt, which serves as a bit of an Easter egg to the video game Celeste. Skybourne Range, overlooking Labyrinthian, took me longer to find than I expected it to. The start for this shorter climb can be found on the opposite side of the ruin, once again marked by a cairn. As you make your way up, you'll find a reference to getting over it with Bennett Foddy, a skeleton in a cauldron with a unique hammer in its grasp. This new hammer, named Icebreaker, comes from the mod author Private Eye, and will do extra damage against Frost Atronachs and Ice Wraiths, but it'll be worth holding on to for when we make our trip to Solstheim. The Throat of the World is the most straightforward of Skyrim's locales, starting around the point where you would find the Notched Pickaxe. From here, it's a very short climb to the top of the tallest peak of the tallest mountain in all of Skyrim. Completing each location in Skyrim gives you another map marker, another meditation point so that you can read the haikus again, and the 2-player buffs, which do stack. If you complete the 5 Skyrim climbs included in the mod, you'll receive a 10% resistance to shock damage while in colder regions, and a 15% resistance to frost damage, once again, while in colder regions. And if you have the Shrine to Kind mod installed, along with the compatibility patch for Ascend, you can get another 5% shock resistance by completing this point. And with Skyrim's highest peaks conquered and climbed, we can turn our sights to Solstheim. This save file already had all vanilla locations discovered, which gave me the map markers for each of the 4 peaks on Solstheim. But rather than fast travel to them and skip the climbs to go right to the meditation points, I wanted to see how it would be to get to the mountaintops on my own. I will say that I think the Solstheim locations would benefit from some of those traversal markers. It's absolutely possible to get to the tops of each of these mountains on your own without any other mods, but compared to their Skyrim counterparts, it doesn't feel as manageable or as smooth. Of Solstheim's 4 locations, only one of which felt fairly straightforward as a climb, that being Hivit-Called Peak near the dwarven ruin of Falbathars. The other 3 were notably harder, and it required a bit more of that very classic mashing jump to scale the sheer mountainside. Freak Day Peak, near Saren's Watch, is home to our final unique item in the mod, an enchanted scarf that can be found on a frozen corpse halfway up the mountainside. The scarf can only be retrieved by making use of Icebreaker, the hammer that we found near Labyrinthian. Hitting the chunk of ice will free the body, granting you this new scarf, meant as a reference to the video game Journey. And while wearing the scarf, you'll gain a buff to movement speed when outside of combat. For each of Solstheim's locations, I tried climbing them normally, and afterwards I installed Skyclimb, just to see the difference. Skyclimb almost made some of the mountains feel trivial, as the mod would try and place climbing points every other foot. So I can definitely see why Jay Serpa recommended trying to follow the intended paths instead. To use Skyclimb, or not to use it, is gonna come down to a personal preference. You could view the Solstheim locations as being a bit more of a challenge than the ones in Skyrim, and that making these climbs without the traversal markers shows your mastery in Skyrim parkour. Or, if you're like me and you're not a huge fan of Skyrim's janky jumping, having Skyclimb for this might be a bit more your speed. The 2 remaining locations in Solstheim are Mortrag Peak near White Ridge Barrow, and Mount Mosring near Mosring's Pass, both of which are a bit harder to climb. Similar to Freak Day Peak, it does feel like quite the contrast compared to Skyrim's peaks. And I think I would have preferred to see the traversal points that Skyrim had, which for me made those climbs much more fun. Not only did they help to avoid the spam jumping up the mountain, but for me, they helped to give a better sense of direction and guide you along the intended path. And completing these 4 climbs in Solstheim will grant you a total of 15% resistance to fire while in colder regions. The inspiration from Ghost of Tsushima is very apparent to me, and I think it works really well for Skyrim. Making these climbs to get the haikus about the surrounding region makes me feel much more in touch with the land. Leaving the little candles as a sign that we've successfully reached the top, having the new woodwind renditions of Skyrim's soundtracks play as we meditate, getting to look down at the land below us. All of it plays to Skyrim's strengths, and it reinforces one of my favorite parts of the game: exploration. Having the bodies of those who tried to make these treks helps to reinforce how dangerous this is supposed to be, and to show us that we're not the first to make these attempts. Having unique gear, the golden feathers as a consumable and new alchemy ingredient, it really makes it feel even more worth it to complete these climbs and look for everything across the mountains. I think this would make an excellent addition to any playthrough, especially for those looking for more reasons to explore. Ascend would make a great complementary mod to a survival playthrough, giving you a significant challenge as you fight against the cold of the mountaintops, but rewarding you with that new gear and those player buffs should you succeed. And given the Ghost of Tsushima inspiration, this really makes me want to see a grappling hook mod at some point. I can only imagine how hard that would be to make, but that would be a really great addition to Ascend in particular. But that's gonna be all for today. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.